Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hello, Grace.
Hello, hello.
Funny seeing you here.
I know. Hey, Andrew. Hey, Jason.
Right. Hello, hello. My apologies for being incredibly early, but this is my way to hook in and still keep a hand free to eat lunch. So
No judgment at all. That's awesome. Yeah, I always try and book a 15-minute break in between calls so I can go get my snack. So no worries, Andrew.
thank
We're
you.
glad
It's
you're here.
a good strategy.
I'm so used to just the 2 minute let's stuff my face at the end of the day that I've
Yeah,
made a point this year to no, try to eat at regular human times.
that's right. That's right. It makes such a difference in the day. When I'm just fueled on coffee and water, I can definitely tell the difference.
Mhm. Exactly. And it doesn't taste as good as bacon and eggs anyway, so
Right? Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks for joining.
Go ahead and get my screen up here while we're waiting.
All right, I can confirm I see it. Your beautiful headshot there.
Wonderful.
All right, for those of you just joining, we're going to kick things off here in another minute or so. We'll give everybody, if you're on the East Coast, we've already established it's around lunchtime, so no worries there. We'll give a few minutes to get settled, and then we'll kick things off here shortly. Kate, we'll do the obligatory weather check. How are things in Buffalo? Has all the snow melted?
We still have a few little piles here or there, but there are snowflakes falling from the sky
Oh
as we
no.
speak. Nothing very, very light, very light. So
Okay.
actually, New York and like the East Coast is getting that storm this week. I don't know if anybody else is on the East Coast and getting, it looks like maybe a foot of snow or so over the next day.
Oh my goodness.
Usually that's us, but not now.
Haha, she says with an evil laugh.
Yes,
Oh,
we've had our time to shine.
that's right. All right, we're starting to get people logged in. Kate, I know we've got quite a bit to cover today. So, and we are recording for everybody that's joined here today. So, I think it's okay to go ahead and kick things off, and I'll be monitoring chat for everybody. So, if you have questions, we want this to be as interactive and as valuable as it can be. So, please feel free to pop off mute if you have a question, or feel free to use the chat. I'll be monitoring that throughout as well. So, Kate, over to you.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you on the line today. We are going to be focused on this topic of operationalizing outcomes. And we have a lot to cover, as Grace said. So I'm going to jump right into it first by just doing a few housekeeping items. So we will record this, or we are recording, and we will share the presentation out to everyone who registered for the webinar. So you'll get that recording as well as the slides that I'm going to share. You get a PDF copy of that. Everyone's lines are muted just to make sure we don't have any background noise. But if you do have a question, as Grace said, put that into the chat and she will monitor. And we should have time at the end for questions and dialogue. At nCloud, we are facilitating a couple different offerings to really drive forward your CS strategy. And you have the webinar today, but we have one more offering this month, which is an office hours around health scorecard. So that's on February 28th. You look for the invite on that, open to anyone. These are all public offerings. So I wanted to make sure we promote our next one. And actually, Grace and I, we're just planning. We've got some fun things planned around and for that session. So excited for it. A little bit about me for those of you on the line who we have never met. I wanted to share a little bit about myself and my background so you can understand me as an individual and my experience, as well as how it's relatable to this topic. Grace, I think we have a few folks that are maybe have their lines unmuted. Would you be good with going through and just muting everyone so we don't have any background noise?
You bet.
Thank you. All right. My name is Kate Griffin, and I'm Vice President of Delivery Services here at nCloud Integrators. So I have the wonderful opportunity of working with a team of consultants that is consulting with customers who are developing their customer success strategy. Sometimes that is also aligned to your tech stack. So we are a Gainsight partner helping customers leverage Gainsight to its fullest capability, as well as some other technology partnerships as well. We mainly are focused in the post-sale aspect of a customer journey. If you missed our our dialogue at the beginning of this call about snow, I am located in Buffalo, New York, so I'm on the East Coast. And my background started in higher education. So I have a master's degree in college student personnel administration, which is a fancy degree to say working with college students on student development. And that experience led me or landed me into tech. I started working at an ed tech company that started here in Buffalo. And that brought me into customer success. I was really looking for something that was a little bit more fast paced, aligned to my skill set. I always had, this connection to technology and the alignment and of educating students at the time, and was able to apply that into the concept of educating customers and how to educate customers and the best way to maximize their adoption of a solution. I had my experience mainly in customer success. So I was at that organization for almost 10 years and built and helped build out or develop a customer success team and strategy, went into more of the ops side. And the reason for that is I definitely have this passion around enhancing efficiencies and optimizing processes, which for those of you on the line that are CS ops, that is the jam of CS operations. So really enjoy trying to look at what's happening in an organization, breaking down things that aren't working, rebuilding them to make us more efficient and achieve operational excellence. So I did a lot of that in my role in operations, and then have been with nCloud for almost the past 3 years. And nCloud, we're a consulting management firm, and that gives us this bird's eye view into lots of different customers and types of customers who are using lots of different technology stacks to try to achieve their goals within their CS charter. And I'm pulling from a lot of those experience, both my experience in the past, as well as my experience in working with customers and this concept around operationalizing outcomes. When I am not at my desk and laptop working on all of the things above, I also am a mom to 3 beautiful children, Annabelle, who's 13, and then I have twins, Sam and Lucy, that are 8. So I have a fun event this afternoon of going to the 3rd grade wax museum. So that's where I'll be jumping off the line and jumping over to see them after this webinar. All right, now that you know about me, a little bit about what we're going to focus on today. In our session, we're going to focus on this concept of being a gardener, not a firefighter. And when we talk about that concept, we're going to talk about what are the different tools and strategies we need to be a gardener. And one of those tools is going to be this concept of a framework to help us operationalize outcomes to get maximum value and achievement of of the goals within our CS charter. We'll walk through each of the aspects of this framework. I think this will be very tangible for those of you on the line that will be able to take what I am sharing with you today or bits and pieces of it, and also then be able to walk away and apply it or use the strategy within your area of the organization. So we're going to talk about evaluating your current state of customer success, how you'll go about identifying your initial priorities, making plans to operationalize those and connect them to outcomes you're hoping to achieve. And then, most importantly, how to share those plans within your org and showcase your impact. To get us started, I want to talk about the current state of customer success, because before we think about what are we going to do and why we're going to do it, we also need to think, like, what's our current environment like? What are we experiencing within technology and customer success? I always find, right, these indexes or surveys, benchmark studies that organizations put out are really powerful because they're the voices of everyone on this call that are represented. There's lots of them out there. I'm highlighting Gainsights today, but many of the technology solutions in this space, along with the TSIA is another one that does a study. There's some really great research on this topic. Gainsight just published their US index for 2023. I do have it linked here, so you'll have a link directly to that within the deck. What were my takeaways after reading the Gainsight Customer Success Index of 2023? One, NCS, we're continuing to mature. So traditionally, or in the past, we were consider ourselves to be really reactive. That's what I like to call that firefighting mode. So we are just putting out fires, not really thinking about what do we need to focus on and why and how are we going to get there. So we really are maturing. And some of the bullet points I have below are going to outline and support this concept of the maturity that we're seeing. Customer success is a business critical unit. We are focused on things like retention, customer outcomes, adoption, and expansion. We have a charter. We know what we need to focus on to really truly be a business strategist and make a difference on our overall KPIs as an organization. And these were the common areas that other CS organizations are focused on. I like to highlight this one because we could see outcomes are right there, right? As a CS organization, you are focused on how are your customers going to get the most out of what you're trying to achieve. The next the next item I want to talk about from this index was digital CS is on the rise. If you've gone to any conference, or I'm sure on LinkedIn, you see all of the posts, everything is about digital CS, and that we need to be able to take the resources that we have today instead of adding headcount or people. We need to think about how we segment, how we leverage technology and processes to be able to automate, give customers more of self-help experiences to drive them forward, spending time on customers where we need to have more of the white glove or high touch experiences. That's both of those concepts are about scaling, and one way and feature that we can use is this concept of automation. So we're going to see more and more of digital CS. If you're hoping digital CS is going to go away, unfortunately, it's not. If anything, we need to lean into it more. And the other thing to support this is, in order to do digital CS, we need folks like us. We need CS operations, and we are starting to see an uptick in individuals or companies that have a formal CS operations team. So CS operations has doubled based on this index from 20% to 41%. And I think there's a correlation here that we need, in order for us to scale and automate, we need technologies and mature processes in order to be able to do these things without having to add a headcount and other resources. Finally, customer success is not just a team. It truly is a mindset. And from my experience, organizations who truly have this mindset that everyone has a hand in customer success are a lot more successful in achieving some of those business critical focus areas within their CS charter or their charter as an organization as a whole. So that study talked about this concept of, right, in the past, we were a firefighter. And when we think about firefighting, we think about, maybe You used to have to, who is the customer that was emailing us most? And that's who got the most attention, or who is the loudest about something they were, not happy with. And that's what this concept of fires are, is like, it's just these fires that come up and we spray water in them and hope that we get rid of them. But that's not really strategic. And so, as that study said, we're maturing, we're doing lots of really powerful things to move us away from this constant short-term fire extinguishing, to being more proactive and a more nurturing approach. And this is where this concept comes in of firefighting versus being a gardener. And I think everyone on this call would rather be in the picture to the right, um, because this is where we need to think about, in order to make this shift, we need to adopt tools and strategies that are going to be focused on long-term growth rather than just reactively putting out the fires. So we're trying to plant the seeds, we're trying to nurture those, water them, make them grow so that we have this beautiful garden and successful garden at the end. And hopefully that garden is another right term for all of your outcomes being achieved that you wanted to within your CS organization. So we need to take this, provide the proper care and the environment to allow the positive outcomes to organically flourish. We are going to have plans and strategies in place to get us there. So how do we get started? One of the first and most important things, and when I tell this to customers all the time, is we need to have focus, because it's not about getting lots of things done. You could come to a consultation call with us and have a list of things. I want to do everything. Well, what's the most important thing and what is going to make the most impact on our outcomes? It's about getting the right things done, which is why I love this quote from the book Essentialism, and one that probably needs to be printed and at the top of our desks to look at, especially for those of us that are in CS or CS operations. So we need to have focus. How do we have focus? A framework and a strategy is one way to do that. Being outcomes focused is not a new concept, and as we saw in the CS index from Gainsight, like outcomes, customer outcomes, CS being focused on customer outcomes is one thing or one big priority that we're all focused on. And if we think about ourselves in put our CS operations hat on, we need to take a play from customer success. And this is a podcast from the chief customer officer at PlanHat. There is a QR code there. You'll be able to scan that and listen to it. It's a really short listen, but a really, really good one. And I like to go out and just see lots of different perspectives and pull things together, because there's a lot of great thought leadership out there in the CS space. This podcast is focused on delivering customer outcomes with a value framework, but we can take the same concept and apply it to internally as a CS organization. So we can take that and think of our customers as our CS team. They are our customers. And there's quite a few relevant things here that came out of this podcast. One, again, just reinforcing this concept that customer success is the core of our business. So everyone should be a part of this and really try to have strong collaboration across all of the units within your organization. And a framework is a vehicle to drive outcomes. And I thought that was so powerful, because with a framework, it will allow us to do this effectively, to have some sort of plan so that we are not in that firefighting mode, or hey, can you do this thing within the tool? Because I think it will be really helpful, or I need you to change this thing. If we just start to take all those water cooler requests, we're never going to be focused on outcomes. So we'll have a little bit of that. We'll have some time saved for that in our operations work, but we need to think about that vehicle that is going to help drive the outcomes. And to achieve outcomes, we need inputs. And this is what they talk about within this podcast, is that it's easy to say, here are our outcomes. Anybody could say that. But the hardest part is thinking about, how are we going to achieve those? How are we going to operationalize them? And that's where a lot of time and effort needs to be put into thinking about that strategy, pen to paper, or marker to whiteboard to really think about how are we actually going to achieve those. And that's where we start to operationalize and be able to think strategically about the outcomes we want to achieve. And as I like to say, that truly is the magic of CS operations and where this skill set is going to come into play. The framework we're going to talk through today is 4 different steps. The first one is a step in evaluate. This is where we're going to look at goals, activities, business challenges, your team feedback. And then we're going to take that to identify, synthesize what's happening, establish what you want to focus on. And then once you know what you want to focus on, look at the ways that you could operationalize and make plans for focusing on what matters, starting to identify potential impact and workflows that will be in a direct alignment to what you've identified as a priority. And then finally, being able to share change management, getting the buy-in, showcasing what you have achieved are all going to be really important for this to be successful. So we're going to break each of these down into different strategies within each of the stages of the framework. Starting off first with evaluate. We want to take time in the beginning, once we're getting started developing, like, how are we going to be focused on what outcomes and why? We first want to understand your current state of customer success. And this is a couple of different things. The first is looking at what are your goals and key activities? What are your current company goals? That's going to be one input that we'd have here to look at. And I'm sure there are like a retention or a churn metric. There's probably, maybe there's a new initiative that's happening, but all of those factors that are driving your business would help drive your business forward. We want to take those and document those. We also want to review your customer journey map, looking at the key activities that happen with each of your phases and outcomes you want to achieve. This also may help you identify any pain points or things that are not working, or maybe you have not written down your customer journey and gone through a process like that. That's an activity that we do with customers quite often. But it helps us pull out, right? What are the goals that we're trying to achieve as a company? What are the key activities we're focused on or that we should be focused on? There can be a difference between maybe what a CSM is doing versus what you know should happen within the customer journey. So you in here in this input, you may see things like, a quantifiable metric, achieve a 93% GRR, or you really need to establish success at scale. You need to launch a new product offering. All of these could be inputs that you'd go through in your document. The next thing would be everything in the first bucket is fine and dandy, but we know that there are quite often some elephants in the room. So, what challenges are you currently facing today? That could be related to something you see in the goals or you've documented in your goals and activities. It could be something completely different that's an outside factor, but could impact your ability to stay focused on the right thing. Or maybe there's a challenge that needs to be a priority in your operational framework. Some examples that I quite often see here are you have low product adoption. So we need to think about if we're trying to achieve, a specific churn rate, we have low product adoption. There's something in there that needs to probably be looked at with a magnifying glass, or we need to prioritize. Maybe your CS team has low to no visibility into customer health. So how will they be able to achieve, the 93% GRR? Your team is unable to scale, or you've never scaled before, but now you're being charged with scaling and you have no tools to scale with. All of those would be items that I would document within a business challenge. The third, I think one of the most important aspects, is to get the perspectives of the team. So CS organizations can be made up of a lot of different types of roles and units. I've seen lots of different strategies when it comes to that. Whoever is on your CS team, gathering their perspectives are really important. Their voices need to be heard. There may be things that they're experiencing that we just don't see or understand. So getting those will be really helpful. of how they're feeling. They also may have ideas of ways or things that should be implemented or strategies that could help with some of the goals and activities that are outlined within the organization and or the CS charter. From the feedback, you may start to hear things like the team's feeling overwhelmed. Well, if you have now a goal around scaling and your team is already feeling overwhelmed, well, those two correlate. If they're resistant to new processes, but now you need to implement something that's going to help them scale, that can, that resistance can be a factor that could potentially be a blocker. You need to be aware of it. And then also there may be ideas to that they have for how to leverage automation. So taking these three inputs helps you identify your current state of customer success. Here's an example of this. This does not need to be fancy by any means. So it simply could be a whiteboard that you're going into a conference room or you're going to do a virtual session. We're going to say, all right, what's our focus within our CS charter? What are those goals and key activities that we need to be focused on? And then what are some of the business challenges or pain points that we know are happening or out there? Either we've collected this from the team or we just know that it's one of those elephants in the room. Putting this down is the first step to building out this framework, because putting everything, the good, the bad, and everything in between on paper. Another option you have to help cultivate, especially feedback from the team or an understanding of any concerns or challenges, is to facilitate an activity called the Eisenhower decision matrix. This is a little bit about like how is the team prioritizing time within their day? What are they focused? What are the activities that they're focused on? And what's the importance of them? This one can help you understand, are they focusing on the right activities? It could help cultivate some ideas for, we need to take this off of this plate. This is an opportunity for us to use automation or technology to scale. This is an opportunity to say, I didn't even realize the team was spending time on this. This isn't, in order for us to achieve X, Y, or Z, we can't have them doing this, so we need to delegate. So if you Google Eisenhower matrix, you'll find lots of different resources around this to be able to facilitate an exercise like this. The next idea I have for you is around this concept of getting more feedback from your team. Depending on how big your team is, if you have a very small team, you might do something a little bit more informal. And if you felt like the culture was right, to do a fireside chat, to ask questions in a virtual setting or in an in-person gathering around some specific questions you want to get their feedback on. If you have a bigger team, a survey is a great way to scale gathering that. And this has really been able to obtain documented feedback from your team. And having that documented feedback then allows you to, one, you could gather their feedback at the beginning. Let's say after 6 months, you want to do it again after you've implemented some of the strategies within your framework, and then be able to do a comparison of how the team is feeling after those have been implemented. So a great way to do a pre-post assessment within the team. And it's really gathering quantifiable data points for you to do that comparison and evaluate if there was improvement or impact on the team directly. So a direct assessment method to be able to say, hey, we did this, we implemented it. It had this impact on our KPI. It had this impact on our team. And here's a direct data point that shows that. Identifying survey questions is not an easy thing for everyone to do. We do this strategy with our customers quite often, where we'll help them develop a survey, where we will administer it for them, analyze their data, and show them and tell them, like, this is what your team feels and thinks. Sometimes having a third party is really nice to do that, because they're a little bit more honest when they know it's not going to be somebody, their manager or somebody within the CS organization, who's going to go through and get into the nitty-gritty of the details. I have 3 questions here that I think are pretty common to ask in questions like this. But what we're trying to get at is, how effective do they believe they are in fulfilling their responsibilities as CSM? Because their effectiveness means that they're effective in achieving whatever we have set out to achieve within our charter. Do they understand what we should be focused on? So, how well do they understand the goals and objectives of one, our CS organization, but then two, of their customers, especially if we think that they need to be driving outcomes and ROI? That's a big one. And then a little bit more about processes and tech stack is which specific resources or tools do you believe would enhance your effectiveness as a CSM? Is there something we don't see that you're spending time on that can make you more effective? Those are the things we're trying to cultivate. There may be things that come up that's going to be in alignment to what we want to focus on. All right, so we got through evaluate. Now let's move into identify. We've done a lot of like documenting and gathering in that initial stage, and that I've given you lots of different tools you could use or strategies you could use to document that. Next, we need to look at everything and start to identify your priorities. That's when you would take all of those inputs from the evaluate stage and we would synthesize your state of CS using the goals, your business challenges, the feedback from your team to document what are we going to focus on and then why are we focusing that? Why does it matter? What impact is it going to have? That's really important because that's where you start to get the data lines of not so much into the details of how we're going to do it, but why. One, this is going to be helpful when you share your plan. So everyone knows why are we doing this and why is it going to be important? What impact is it going to have? You'll get more buy-in from the team. You might have a very long list. I realize this. You might say, oh my gosh, Kate, we have so much stuff we need to do and we'll never be able to accomplish it all. I always stress this importance of like finding your low hanging fruit and the things that will have a big impact. So don't overcomplicate. Take a step back from that documentation of your synthesized state of CS and find the things that can make the most impact and also consider things that have minimal blockers to success. This is a quick win. It's an easy ask. It's an easy do. It also can help us with this or give us a foundational block to build upon to reach X. Align to your state of maturity. So sometimes I see customers will have something and they're getting so advanced with what the solution is going to be. Right. Think about where you are as an organization from a CS maturity and start with a crawl, walk, run approach. So you may say, okay, I can't do that yet, but I could start with this. Eventually I can add this, and then I can add this and start to build up plans that actually may have 3 different layers to them and a crawl, walk, run approach. Also, when you identify those priorities, identify a time achievement for them. So maybe you say, this is the first thing we're going to do. We're going to do it within the next 90 days. This is really powerful for the culture of we're hearing you. We're trying to be really focused on what we're doing and why. And we're also going to showcase to you the things we're going to do it at the speed we're going to be able to do them. We also can't do everything. So this allows them to see there is movement being made while they can see what's being planned for the future. This is a very basic grid. I think it's fairly basic, but a strategy you could use of once you identify like what are the outcomes you're going to focus on, that's what you see in the focus column. You might see like improve customer retention. You need to scale CS activities to improve your efficiency. You have a product that you have to migrate to a new solution. You are trying to expand a certain product. What are those things that you know are going to be in your priority list? Those are your outcomes. What are the details of those? So why are they on your list? And this is where you go through and you're going to have from those inputs, probably things that align from multiple ways. if I look at the improved customer retention, one, you missed the retention goal last year. It's now a priority, and maybe it's a little bit higher this year. But your CS team is new to having responsibility around renewal. That's one of those elephants in the room of we need to figure out how to support them in building the skill set to be able to own a renewal conversation, the commercials that go with it, and the strategy to get ahead of risk that could be tied to renewal. And maybe the other thing is you don't really know why customers are leaving. Maybe you have, some surface level information, but you need to dig deeper into those churn reasons that would help you even more operationalize. Here are the things we need to focus on because these are reasons why customers are leaving. Once you have that level detail, I like to call that the why detail, you then go through to prioritize because, again, you're not going to be able to do everything at once. There may be aspects of these that you'll be able to break apart a bit. We'd want to go through and at least to do a first pass of, I use a P1, 2, 3, priority 1, 2, 3, and so forth to identify priorities. So maybe it's the first two because we really need to get ahead of this retention goal. And this year's going to fly by. So we need to think about that. That's the top of our list for a variety of reasons. But we're not ready to expand product X yet. Maybe it came from a company we acquired. We don't know enough. So we put that at the back burner. We put all of our time and effort into one of the top ones. The other thing we'd want to think about in identifying the outcomes that we're focused on is we also want to try to align these to leading and lagging indicators. And for those of you that are not familiar with this, the definitions of these, and I think sometimes it can get a little confusing. So I have this chart here just to explain the differences here. A leading indicator, these are early warning signs. I always think back to my higher ed days. This is like a student who we may predict is going to fail a class or fail out of school. This is an early risk warning for a student. It's that, right? These are early warning signs or insights into what we think the customer behavior could be in the future. So that could be product adoption, their customer satisfaction scores, their engagement metrics. This may say their product adoption is low. That could lead us to them churning, right? So it's kind of predicting something either negative or positive or in between. Whereas a lagging indicator reflects past customer behavior or outcomes. So the behavior has already happened. That customer may have had a low product adoption and then churned. The lagging indicator is the fact that they churned because that already happened. Being able to go through and then also align some of these metrics, leading and lagging, to maybe in this chart when you start to identify what your outcomes are going to be, that why detail, prioritization, and then any of those leading and lagging indicators that would be a quantifiable data point for us to follow if we have improvements on them. The funnest part of the framework, and for those that are in operations are like, all right, how are we going to actually do this? This is, where we get to put on all of the magic of here's what we're going to do and why we're going to do it and how we're going to do it and all the options for it. This is where we're going to take those priorities, those outcomes, and we're going to operationalize them. This chart walks through the priority, which is the what, the potential impact, which is the why. This is where you could start to join together like the details that I had in that one chart, the why details, as well as your quantifiable, like your leading lagging indicators. And then what are potential workflows? How will you achieve this? And there's going to be multiple hows for each of these. So we'll just walk through the first one. Let's say that you need to improve your customer onboarding process. We know that onboarding experience impacts churn rates. Your churn rate is low. We don't think that we're very efficient here. That kind of came through in our team feedback as well as our customer feedback. So some of the why is we need to improve time to value. Either we don't know that or that's really high and we need to lower it. Our team feels like they're very inefficient in the onboarding experience. The customers feel confused about how they're onboarding, when they're onboarding. And we want to improve what we would refer to as a transactional CSAT, so that transaction within the customer journey, that onboarding has happened. That's what we're focused on. That's the why. We want to improve those things. What could we do to improve the customer onboarding process? Here's where we start to identify what we're going to do. We could develop standard templates for onboarding in alignment to an SOW. We could a statement of work. We could automate customer welcome messaging to make sure the customer gets information of what they need to do next at the right time. So just in right time messaging. We also could align those CSAT surveys with key milestone achievements, making sure we're capturing the customer feedback at those right points along the customer journey. Yours will look a lot more detailed than this. This is me taking an example and pulling out some things that I've done in the past, or I've seen, or have been a part of documentation. But the what, the why, and the how is really important. Gainsight's operations and scale team has done a really great job on just developing their framework of what goes into their planning and execution for operations. From this visual, you can see there's these two inputs. There's the pillars and the initiatives that are at the top that comes from the company. And then there's the teams at the bottom. So just like we talked about in our evaluate stage of getting feedback from both what's happening at the company and what's happening within the team, then both of those inputting to create our objectives, key results, and the programs that are going to be associated. You have a QR code there that's going to link you to a blog that will have some Loom videos about how Gainsight goes about their strategy within operations. They also use a tool called monday.com to organize their plan. So I definitely encourage you to go out, scan that, watch that to review, read through the blog, and then watch some of the videos they have posted. It's just a great wealth of information that might be of value for you. There are, for those of you on the line who are looking to go out and build something. All right. The next thing is, once you know what you're going to focus on, why you're going to focus on it, what some of those, like how are we going to do that, some of those workflows, and you know what's going to happen, it's really important that we have some sort of strategy around release planning. Because we are, if we are doing something that is either a new process that we're putting into place, that's still a release of a new process that needs to be adopted, or a release of, there's a process that also is within a piece of technology, which a lot of the time that is what we're doing. We're leveraging technology to be able to support some of these outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So we need to have a strategy that's really strong to ensure everybody's on the same page and understands. So starting with this CX ops framework around communicate, this is something that I've developed. Just my automation here. The first thing is communicating, and this is transparently communicating upcoming changes with stakeholders. We need to communicate, this is something we're focused on, this is why we're focused on, this is what you should expect in the time frame we expect it. So clearly outlining the reasons, the benefits, and the alignment with those outcomes or goals. We then would release it. And when we think about releasing it, especially if you have a very large team, if you have a small CS org, I think that's easier to start small because you by nature are small. But if you have a bigger team, start small and then iterate and learn from where you did that small iteration. So learn from your pilot to be able to take what you learn, implement those changes before releasing it to the broader team. Once we've released it, let's say to the broader team, we need to train and educate. So we need to offer comprehensive training sessions for that team. And we need to think about everyone's different learning styles. We all learn in different ways. And so it's important to think about, what are the different modes of learning offerings that you could provide the team, whether it be hands-on, or video, audio, written documentation, thinking about just having a variety there, as well as having the ability to have self-serve options. Everyone's very busy. Getting everyone in a room to have, a webinar training is sometimes hard. So having more on demand, just like our customers want to self-serve, right? We want to give our teams the options to self-serve as well. We then, a really, really important aspect of this is, are we achieving the thing we intended to achieve? And the best way to do that is we need to measure the effectiveness and the impact. So we may have a specific leading or lagging indicator that we're monitoring. There may be a quantifiable data point that we are looking at to ensure measurement. Maybe that's feedback from the team or feedback from customers. Whatever that is, we want to have some sort of measurement and then evaluate that, study it to identify areas for improvement, to be able to make tweaks and changes, because if it's not having an impact with the team, on our overall goals, on our customer experience, we don't want to keep doing it. We need to change it to make sure it works for everyone that is a part of it. And then this is hard work. So everything that I've talked through today takes a lot of time and effort and creative and critical thinking skills. So celebrate your success. Reinforce, one, the value, the impact of the changes that you have put in place. Acknowledge team members who maybe were part of the pilot, or ops people who took time to create documentation so you could have those self-serve options. Your training team that maybe was involved. Make sure you take the time, especially for really big things that are going to make a big impact. Make sure you take that time and you celebrate. Well, hopefully you find this as a tangible framework just for this aspect of release planning when you get into this concept of starting to operationalize those outcomes. Last but not least, we want to focus on sharing our impact. And we were talking a little bit about that in that final stage. So we want to be prepared to share. One, we want to be transparent. So when we have a framework for the outcomes we're focusing on, maybe in the quarter or the first half of the year, our plans to do them, the timing, we want to document those plans and then unlock that door so individuals across the company can see and be aware of what's happening and why it's happening, and have some sort of mechanism to keep the team up to date, whether that be in team meetings within CS or company all-hand meetings, a Slack channel, an email that goes out once a month, some way to have a regular cadence to proactively share updates. In your communication, you want to support the W's. Why are we doing this? When will it happen? Who will be impacted? And what is the potential impact on our business objectives? That allows us, the team, to understand there is a reason why we're doing this, to help get their buy-in, a little bit of what's in it for them, but also what's in it for our business. Use your data to make decisions. So when you think about that, the documentation, the evaluate stage, use data to back up your decisions and share those data-informed decisions. So maybe there was a certain aspect that we found in our churn reasons that was leading to us to prioritize a certain outcome and then operationalize workflows, processes, or within our technology. Share that to make sure people understand you're using data to inform why you're taking the steps you're taking, and create those data supported stories. So we identified this as an outcome because of this. Data told us X, and here's where we're at with the release and the impact that it's having on Y. Be all about the data. Lastly, find your champions. So find those folks that are maybe really excited to be a part of this new strategy and framework. Leverage them to help communicate your plans. So if you're a team of one, it doesn't always have to be you and your voice. You can have a team of individuals, whether they're on your team or not, to help you communicate and be a part of this strategy. If you have people who have had success in something that you've built out, within their plans. That's great to have them share their success, because the more voices you have, the more impact it can have overall, I think, on your culture and as an organization. We have the wonderful opportunity of working with an organization, Tricentis. We consult with them on their strategy as well as their adoption of Gainsight. And part of our work is that we do a QBR every quarter to be able to showcase, the work that we're doing with these customers, with our customers, what we're focused on and how it's focused on outcomes that they want to achieve. We focus a bit for this customer who's using Gainsight on the Gainsight value drivers, and we take time to document and reflect this. So one, this is a great way because this is showcasing a framework of customer to customer. You also could use this internally, though. I wanted to show this a bit of like ways you could communicate of, here was the objective or the outcome we were trying to achieve. Here's the outcomes that they're tied to. This surveying would improve retention, could improve user experience and product adoption. Here's a summary of what we did. Here's the impact, and surveying is great to have, quantitative data points because by nature, they are that type of data set. So we were able to showcase what the NPS and CSAT was as we implemented this. So a great story and a wonderful customer that we have worked with. We've walked through this framework for success. I have it here just to go back through, what I've talked through today, which was a lot. And hopefully you're finding things here or there that you can pull away and take and think about how you would apply it in your organization. But we have that evaluate stage where you're evaluating your goals, your activities across the customer journey, your business challenges, getting input from the team. Then we're taking that and identifying our focus. What are the outcomes we want to focus on and the why? Starting to prioritize it. Once we prioritize and we know what's going to be up first, we then start to focus on how do we operationalize? And this is where we want to focus on what matters and start to outline what the impact could be and potential workflows to help us improve or achieve those outcomes. And then most importantly, we want to be transparent in what we're doing, supporting the W's, using your data to make data-informed stories or share data-informed stories. And lastly, finding your champions to help really pioneer all of this work that we're doing to ensure if we go back to one of my first slides around, the podcast from PlanHat and then the index from Gainsight, it's all about customer success. Everyone in the organization should be about customer success. This framework helps pull everyone together to make sure that we're all on the same page and all working together. How do you get started? You may be really excited and like, I can't wait to go and start to take some of the things that Kate has shared and implement them. Maybe saying, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. We go back to our concept of low-hanging fruit. How can you get started? A great activity to help start evaluating is to do an exercise called the rose thorn bud evaluation. And some of you on the line have probably used this before, but the concept is you could take this and do this on a whiteboard. You could have a paper that you're documenting. Grace and I did this at a conference once where we had pieces of paper and clipboards and people were writing things down. But the rose is where you write down positive aspects of your customer success strategy. The thorn is the negative things, the things that maybe are not working or the elephants in the room. Bud is the potential opportunities to grow and improve success strategy. I love this framework and this activity. It also directly correlates back to the beginning of being gardeners, right? We want to think about how we can plant the seeds and grow the garden and really have something that's flourishing. And this activity, one, directly lines to being a gardener, but two, can be really helpful in getting started. So what are some examples that maybe you see in a rose thorn bud customer success evaluation? I like to always show individuals, like, what would this look like? Like, what could be in each of these areas? For the rows, maybe you write down customers are satisfied with your support team response times. So customers are mentioning that that's fast and they're happy. That's a key reason for satisfaction. They also feel like feedback is incorporated into your product roadmap. So things that are working within your strategy. From a thorn perspective, even though customers are satisfied with support team response times and they feel like their voices are heard from the product roadmap, they're still churning. And we don't necessarily know why they're churning. And it's been steady. We also don't have a ton of customers who are responding to surveys. So we don't have the voice of the customer captured. That's a thorn. A bud is we want to automate onboarding for new customers. Like, this is an opportunity for us to scale and improve ramp up time, or that time to value metric. Another bud maybe that you would see is an expansion opportunities with existing customers. And there's definitely potential to upsell and expand revenue within existing customers. Yours will be a lot more comprehensive, but hopefully that gets your gears churning on some examples and of what you might see in each of those columns. So again, if you Google Rose Thumb Board, you'll find lots of different worksheets and things you could download for free, or just take a Word document or a whiteboard and do this exercise, or I've seen it done with Post-it notes as well. But a great way to get started within that evaluate stage. So we have 6 minutes left. And what I would love to hear from anyone who's willing to share is how you are operationalizing outcomes within your CS team, and or what challenges you're facing in the process. If you have something you want to share, Chris, should they raise their hand? We'll take them off of mute, or go into chat. How you want to do that?
Either is fine. You are free to unmute yourselves too. So if you just wanted to pop off mute and share, that's totally fine. Or you can raise your hand and I'll take you off as well.
Hopefully we have some daring folks to share a little bit. And or if there was something you wanted to ask related to what I presented today as a strategy, or
I was
something
just
you
about to say
liked.
that. Feel free to ask any questions that came up, because that was just a lot of good content. I'm sure it got the gears the gears moving for quite a few of you. So if you have any questions, we'd love to just spend the last few minutes chatting about it. All right, Daphne, you are on. I think you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at the framework, and I would love to have your feedback on how can you get started with the whole framework if you don't have customer success operations yet? What will be your recommendation?
Yeah, what a great question, right? Now all of us on this call, and I'm sure Daphne, I'm assuming you do not have a CS operations team, which is why you're
We
asking
don't.
this. And there's, I'm sure, many other people on here who are in the same boat. And that doesn't mean you can't get started. You know, when I started in CS, we didn't have operations. What I would say is you should create a collective, and sometimes people call it a steering committee, whatever you want to call it. That is like a pseudo ops strategy team to think about and document this. I think CS leadership should be represented on that, as well as depending on what your management level is, if there are a manager or managers that can be representative, and then also somebody from a CSM. So it might be, depending on the size of your organization, Daphne, would depend on how many people I would put on that. But I would create this, I like the word collective more than steering committee, but there would be a meeting of the minds to document and think through, and then really be the voices to be able to lead and push this out, or drive this forward. You'll need to use individuals on your team, because if you don't have one person who's doing things in tech or whatnot, you're going to have to allocate to those resources that you have within your team. Another strategy is to hire consultancy like us. We do this all the time to help drive organizations forward. Or maybe, Daphne, you're at the time to make the play for a headcount for CS operations and show the value it could bring in your team. But those would be the three options that I would go with.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Kate.
Yep.
Thanks, Daphne. Katie, you're up.
Hey, everybody. So, Kate, thank you for sharing all of the great material. I have the podcast kind of lined up for my listening pleasure here in just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the challenges that I'm facing presently, kind of operationalizing a process. I've been the CS director here at Capato for a year and a half, and we made a business decision that I needed a CS ops person, and I'm now pivoting into that CS ops role, which is
Congrats.
it's terrifying, but I'm very excited. And I think the biggest challenge that I'm running into right now is separating workflows in terms of the outcome, right? And I think that's really topical about what you're talking about today, because like my business objectives to my customers, my CSMs, right, are part of my priorities, but also I have to look at our company's goals. And I think the challenge that I'm kind of stuck in between is what's keep the lights on and how do I categorize it, right, and demonstrate value and make sure I'm working on the right things. And I think that's where I'm just personally running into a lot of problems, is like, okay, this is a thing that's broken, but how do I prioritize that over launching a verified outcome program? And so that's where my starting point is, because I've been kind of like moonlighting as our Gainsight admin for a little while, and now I have a lot of time to spend on it, and I'm like, but what do I do first? I feel like I'm boiling the ocean a little bit.
Yeah. Oh gosh, such a great point to bring up. Thank you for coming off of mute and bringing it up, because again, another one that I think many folks are probably, challenged with, of you get Slacks, you get emails, somebody walks up to you in your office of like, I need this is broken. I really need this to make my day-to-day work. And you get all of these requests. And if you just focus on that, you in itself become a firefighter. You're not a gardener. Just like we would tell our CSMs. I do think it's a balancing act that you and your strategy have to think about this in a percentage breakdown of your work when you build out your plans. For example, it wouldn't be realistic for us to say 100% of the work that you do from an operations is forward thinking, because you need to keep the lights on. You need to troubleshoot things that aren't working, but you also need to maybe take some requests that might not be related to the big picture outcomes, but it's going to have an impact and sentiment in the team. Variety of things can go into that. Grace, I was thinking back, I know we have a breakdown of this, but I feel like I've seen this. It's like 20% is keep the lights on, and 80% is forward thinking, or actually, I think it was 60% is forward thinking, 20% is professional development and education, and 20% is keeping the lights on. Like some sort of breakdown, you know what I mean? Katie, like to say, and this is something you should share with the team so they understand, like there's a reason why you can't take all of those requests, because then no one will move forward on the outcomes you want to. So even being able to share that of like, in my role, here's how I'm going to approach things. And these types of requests may get flagged for being deprioritized because of this reason, but there is a reason behind that. Not to say I won't ever get to them, but this is what that means when that happens. So really building out your communication with the team around it as well, and expectations.
Yeah, I think level setting on that first side. Sorry, Grace, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I really like that. And I think that even like Kate was mentioning with like prioritizing that, adding even that additional bucket. So the way that you approach all of the things that are in your queue, right? Or all the things that you're going to be working on or planning for 2024, bucketing as forward thinking, keeping the lights on the day to day. And then obviously you with your management talking about your professional development, but being transparent, I think is key there.
Yeah. And I think we just have to figure out the intake process, because we've never formalized one, right? So these are all new motions that not only I'm scared, so is my team. They're like, well, where's Katie going? What is this whole thing, you know? And so making sure we have a formal communication pathway about how to raise issues is like, I think first in this line of process, and then secondarily letting them know, hey, this is how you can reach me, and then this is how I'm going to take into consideration the prioritization of the request.
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe even
Yep.
getting some time on like with another, and I don't know if you have another operations team where like sales ops or something like that, where you could just say like, hey, how are you doing this internally for this team? Grabbing some great ideas and starting small, right? Like of a Google form or, you know, something really simple and then growing from there.
Yes, I am reporting within our entire go-to-market ops team.
Awesome.
So
Great.
I'm with the team that does all the things now, and very excited to make that pivot. And great suggestion to meet with sales enablement or sales ops to kind of determine what their process is, so we have a combined pathway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so
That's
much.
great. Yes, of
Thank
course.
you.
I know we're over our time here. So I'll go to my final slide, and Grace, you want to wrap us up and we'll talk about next steps?
Absolutely. So we'll be sending out this recording, this deck with all the links in it, so you can use this to start your framework, use it for gleaning ideas. As always, please feel free to reach directly out to myself or Kate. You'll see our contact information here in this deck, but also in the follow-up email. We'd love to talk to you about any of this. So if you need some help getting started, that's what we do. That's why we're here. So we would love to help you. So thank you, Kate, for all the valuable information, and thank you, team, for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Bye,
rest of your
guys.
day. Bye.